user input. So it actually follows simple steps. So we've learned about the cout, which is actually like printing, like just prints out the console or the screen. Then for the input, we're going to use a keyword called cin, which now uses this one. So remember that cout uses this one. So you are telling the compiler print something to the screen, then cin will actually like take in the user input from the keyboard. So and it actually takes in the variable name. So variable name you already assigned here. So you're going to see that right now. So once you have that, then you can now use. Then we're going to see how we're going to get multi-line. Maybe like we have a long string from user, so we're going to use the get line method, which takes in your variable name and actually the cin and the variable name, sorry. So it takes in the cin, that's the method, and then it also takes in the variable name you've already assigned it to your computer. So the first thing we want to do is maybe like step one. So what we're going to do is we are going to print out something to the screen first. So we're going to say cout, then tell the user maybe like enter your age. Then we are going to end the line. So print out it actually a new line, or if you want to print out in a real line, you can use the backslash then end. So with this, you can now print directly in a new line without using the end line. So if you now run this, you now see enter your age. So when we try it, maybe like enter 5, boom. So our editor like exits. So the next thing I want us to do is go to the next step. So I'm just going to call this one step 2. Then once I have this, so I can now like cin. So with cin, it takes this as the format, and then also you have to end it with the semicolon. So what comes in between here is the variable name you've declared. So let's declare the variable name. So let's say int age. Then we are not going to assign it to maybe like 40 and then it's there, because this is hard coding. So we are directly declaring and assigning a value to 40. So we're going to only like declare the variable. So we have int age. So then what comes in between here is the age now, the variable name. So this will now tell the user, hey, or the compiler, that the user declared actually a variable, and in that variable take is input and then store it in that variable. Then the next step, so let's say maybe like step 3, we can now like print it out. So we can now say cout the age of the user. So you're going to see that in actually a new line. So in quick recap, so we are in first step, we can tell a user to print out something for it to be more descriptive. Then second step is we declare, and then we now take in what we've already declared, and then we can print it to the user. So if you now run this, we now see enter your age. I enter 5, then I'm receiving 5. So to make it more descriptive, so let's use a string concatenation here. So let's just close this one. So you can now say like, so your age is, then use now this, so that it can a little bit be more of descriptive. So if you now run this, you see now that enter your age, so 4, then you can now see that your age is 4. So that was actually like a quick one about user input. So let's say we want to now like access, so I'm just going to remove this whole stuff here, whole bunch of code. So sorry for that. So I'm going to add that. So let's say we want to get maybe a string from a user. So just like step 1, we'd first declare something here. So string, then we can say name. Then we are going to maybe like tell a user to enter the name. So we can say enter your name. So then you can just say \n next line. Then you can now like see in the name. So you can say name. Then you can see out. You can now print out again. So see out, like your name is, then we pass in the name here. So if you now run this, let's see what will happen. Enter your name. So let's say Tim Owen, then from Kenya. You now see that your name is Teams. So it's not picking up all these other names, so teams, or so it's only picking in teams because we are actually taking in a long string. So to actually like help you implement this, we use the getLine method. So you have to remove this, then you get the line. So within the get line, so we pass in the cin. So this tells the compiler, hey compiler, we want to actually like store the user input, and that user input is the name. Now, if you run this, let's see what will happen. So it's saying get line is this one, small l. So if you now run this, we now see that. So if you now write teams Owen from Kenya, maybe like a developer in maybe like gaming. So you see now that it's taking the entire long string. So for you to implement this, you will have to use the get line to actually store in long variables. So we can again directly print maybe like a double or a float value. So we can say maybe like float interest. Then directly we can see out. So, or we can instead, without having to see out, but it will actually like look different. So we can directly say cin interest, then see out interest. So this is actually like almost like plain stuff. So the user won't understand what's actually expected. So only this will happen. So if our user doesn't like get a descriptive word of maybe like what's happening, then it's gonna be a little bit difficult. So that's why it's nice to actually like organize your code. So you can say see out, maybe enter the monthly interest. So this one should be, let's place it in a new line. Oh, sorry. So let's place it in a new line. Then once we have in the input, because it's just a short one, we don't need a multi-line, so we just directly use the cin and then pass in the interest. So we can now come and now see out with some wording. So the interest, so let's just say the rate is, then put in some space so that we can have a little bit something on. So we can also like add other strings here. So I can say per month. And then if we now run this, then enter monthly interest. So we can say maybe like our monthly interest is maybe like 5.567. Then you can also see that the rate is 80.577 per month. So once maybe if you are getting an input from a user, so it's actually like a good practice to tell the user what is actually expected of him or her. So that was very actually a quick one. So we can perform maybe like mathematical operations using this. So let's say we can maybe like create a simple maybe calculator. So we've asked our user to maybe like enter the first number. So enter num1, then we store in. So let's just use integer. So we can say int, then we have num1, then we have here again int num2. So this is actually like a repetitive way of declaring your variables. So instead, if you have same data type, then you can use a comma to like separate them. So you can say now int num1 and then int number2. So then we can now again say out here. So see out, maybe like tell the user to enter number2. That's all. Let's perform this in the next line. So this is called escaping characters. So if you now do that, then we can now see in our second number, that's num2. Then we can now perform our operations. So let's say now multiplication equal to num1 multiplied by num2. So you end that, then you can now like print the multiplication. So you can say now multiplication of, then say here num1, then so let's add some spacing here. Then you can say of num1, say let's say multiplied by, then num2, then you can say is is now, so it's now the multiplication, the result here. So we are multiplying num1 by num2 and then storing in a variable called mod. So because we are using this one, so we can again declare it here. So we are having an integer called mod, so is now mod. So if you now run this code here, so it will ask us for our first sorry, so we are supposed to change this one to num1. So if you now run this, enter num1 4, enter num2 4. So the multiplication of 4 multiplied by 4 is 16. So that's actually how you can get a user input and perform different operations. So this is just a string concatenation. Otherwise, you would have directly, maybe like, if you don't want to describe what's happening, you can just say print mod. So you can now see that we are having multiplication of num1 and then 4, we are now after. So maybe if you are multiplying a float value, so maybe we wanted the user to enter in the second number as a float or the result as a float, then we now remove this one because they are not of the same data type. Then I can now say, because somebody can enter different something, so float then mod, so I can declare it that way. So maybe, for example, if we add a double value inside here, so then we now have to declare it on a different value, but this now will actually like work very well. So if you enter 5 multiplied by 5, the result is 25 because it's they are all integers. But if what if we expected a user to enter maybe a value, a double float, so we can say now double then num2. So then we can now see we can now perform operations here. So because these are float and this the other one, so we can say 6, then 4.5, then we now see that it's 26.7 because we are using a float value. So what happens in a scenario whereby we declare this one as an integer? So let's see what will be the output. So we expect that our result should be an integer, but now we are entering in a decimal point number here. So if you now run this, then enter maybe 5 and then 6.5, you now find that it's 32 instead of 32.5. So you have to be very careful with the values you are entering. So you have to make sure that if you want floating results, then you have to use a float, or if you want a double, then you can use now a double result. So the next thing we want to now look is the arrays.